How this move came to be is usually for ascending, so getting up to something higher with a directional change. And we got a pretty good example of that right here. So Coach Tom's going to give us one. Welcome back, all the parkour nerds out there. Coach Renee, Coach Tom, we are here at Origins Parkour, and we are going to take another deep dive into some parkour theory today. And a saying I want to kind of start with, I don't know if you heard this saying before, but it is, if you can use a car to do something, don't use a truck. And what we're going to talk about here is your average tack back or 180, how that move came to be, and some of the problems that happen, actually I think when we teach it to beginners or people that are less advanced with the move, and try to remind some folks out there about some of the alternatives you can use. So when we think about our tack back or our 180, the best example that I can think of how this move came to be is usually for ascending, so getting up to something higher with a directional change. And we got a pretty good example of that right here. So Coach Tom's going to give us one. Right on. You're supposed to go up, though.
Oh, yeah. I'm supposed to climb up?
Yeah. He hates.
I forgot.
So we're going to move on here, and we are going to look at another example of a much smaller distance. So we're going to try to see if we can apply that same movement to change directions, but this time we're going to a much closer structure that is also much lower. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. Okay. It's not an SPL stick.
I didn't stick it.
Okay, so some of the difficulties here now, and we might think that this is a good place to teach someone how to do a tack back 180 because it's smaller, it's closer to the ground, they don't have to reach as high. However, the problem that we see here is because this is so close and actually a low structure, to me, as just in my head as I'm approaching this and I think about taking those 2 steps, I think about how high I'm going to be in the air, and instantly it just gives me a bad feeling. I don't feel like I want to drop down and hit this edge. And it feels like it would actually be easier to do a 1-step. Can we do a 1-step?
Yeah, do 1 step.
Okay, and we stuck that one.
I got a little more on the edge on that one.
And anecdotally, we can see that was a better way to go there. So a lot of times, this can also be a progression for a 180. So if you don't have a big distance to cover, or even if you do, you could prep that one over there with that 1-step if the idea of going up really high at first scares you. I don't know if you can think of times like with other examples where maybe the 180 would be, the 2-step 180 would be better, or the single-step tack.
The two-step 180 is obviously good for getting height, but I also find that if it is a lower structure but it's really far away, the 2-step will allow you to jump from a higher position, which then makes the gap easier to cover. But in this case, it's so small that you don't need that extra height for the distance you're trying to clear. Unless you're like this tall, right? If you're a child in this scenario, then it might make sense to do a 2-step. But even then, this isn't a particularly high surface, so a 1-step would probably be sufficient, and probably be easier too, because there's less moving parts, less things that you have to be focused on to accomplish this skill. So those are the 2 scenarios I can think of in terms of why a 2-step would be better. Is the high surfaces that you're trying to get to, so you can jump from a higher position, or the really far ones so you can jump from a higher position again to cover more distance.
Yeah, so what we're trying to say here is that your 2-step is obviously, without question, going to get you more power, more height. So if you're really trying to cover a big distance, use that 2-step. However, if you don't need to use the truck, you can use that 1-step instead, and it'll get the job done. And it can also be a great progression if you are maybe spooked by a scenario, and there's nothing wrong with doing a 2-step here, right? That's again, we always say that's parkour, is you could do a 2-step here just because it looks cooler. Maybe it is actually a bit harder, but you could always start again with that 1-step as your progression.
All right, that's all we have for you today. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, leave us a comment. What do you want us to talk about next? And we'll catch you in the next one.